Our next author is Jack Christian, and Jack was in the 6th grade at Immaculate Conception of Darden Catholic School in Darden Prairie, Missouri, when he wrote this story with a great title, The Nine-Year-Old Goose Killer.
It was the winter of 1911 in St. Louis. My great-great-grandma, Helen Benner, was forced to raise the family by herself because her mom had died and her dad had to work all of the time. Helen had 3 younger brothers, Eddie, Harry, and George, and 2 younger sisters named Dorothy and Gladys. George was 9 at the time, and no matter where George went, he always seemed to find trouble. One day, close to Christmas, Helen's dad's boss gave the family a goose for Christmas dinner. There were 2 problems. 1, the goose was alive, and 2, the family had to walk 3 miles downtown to pick the goose up. Helen had to babysit Dorothy and Gladys. Her dad, Eddie, and Harry were off working, so that left only George to pick up the goose and take it home. When he arrived downtown, George realized that he didn't have anything to take the goose home in, so he decided he was going to carry the goose home in his arms. However, the goose did not like this, and it started to peck and flap his wings at George. He then realized that carrying the goose was not an option, so he devised the best plan he could think of. First, George got a rope. Second, he tied the rope around the goose's neck. And third, he began to walk the goose home like a dog on a leash. Soon after, George began his trip back. He realized it was taking too long to walk home, so he decided to run. However, the goose could not keep up, and it was soon strangled. The goose continued to become heavier, but George assumed it was just struggling on the rope, so he did not look back. When George arrived home, he found out that the goose hadn't been falling on the rope. It was dead. George had dragged it 2 of the 3 miles back. The dead goose was covered in dirt and rocks, and the skin had been scraped off. Naturally, the family couldn't eat the goose, and everyone was furious with George for ruining their Christmas dinner. A couple of days later, George had forgotten how mad he was about the goose and was throwing his sister Dorothy's hat into the air. One time, he looked away as he tossed it and was surprised when it didn't come down. He looked up to find that it was resting on a kerosene lamp and it was on fire. It could have burned the house down. On Christmas morning, all of the excited kids looked in their stockings to find oranges, all of the kids except George. When he looked in his stocking, all he found was a big lump of coal. George's antics that year led him to become known as the 9-Year-Old Goose Killer.